So it's that time of year again. It's Mermay. As an artist, Mermay feels almost mandatory, but it's something I usually skip out on. While I don't dislike mermaids, they're generally not my style. Well, until this year. Originally, I was going to make a doll to celebrate the release of Doom: The Dark Ages, but that ended up not working, so I decided to finally participate in Mermay. That and the algorithm will probably like this video a lot more, so here we are. Instead of making something cute, mysterious, or elegant, I'm going full weirdo with my creation. Inspired by lampreys, bloodworms, and Feejee mermaids, this freak of nature is going to be right at home at your nearest sideshow. I imagine these merfolk are parasites for aquatic megafauna, like how lampreys are parasites on other fish. And maybe this particular specimen was found when a whale corpse washed ashore. And when somebody noticed this particular organism latched onto the poor beast, they thought what many humans inevitably do given the circumstances.
Whoa, I can sell this!
For this project, I'm using this busted up Ghoulia Yelp's head and the arms and torso from a ball-jointed monster high body I found on Thingiverse.
Hello, I would love to try some sausage.
But before we put things together and color match them, first I need to modify the head. Mainly, we don't need the face anymore. This is going to be a sculpture-heavy doll, so for your auditory pleasure, I guess, I'll give one of my increasingly common TED Talks, this time about Feejee mermaids. Feejee mermaids were hoaxes popularized by none other than P.T. Barnum in his exhibitions during the 1840s. Made with some very creative taxidermy, Feejee mermaids feature the upper halves of apes or monkeys and the tails of large fish. Unlike mermaids as we know them, Feejee mermaids are frightful, freakish, and grotesque. Barnum himself described his as ugly, dried up, diminutive, and appearing to have died in great agony. Of course, this reality wasn't lost on Barnum's many patrons, who had collectively hoped that the mermaids would be more attractive like their fairy tale counterparts. Many were also led to believe that this would be the case thanks to Barnum's own advertisements, which did illustrate conventionally attractive mermaids to entice the public. According to an article in Western Folklore, Barnum's particular specimen was likely created by a Japanese fisherman, though its original purpose is still up for debate. As an important side note, unlike today, trade between Japan and the West was non-existent at this point in time. Only Denmark could trade with Japan until 1853, when trade with Japan opened to the rest of the West, so it's a big deal that one of these made it out of Japan when it did. Once in the West, it toured a number of large cities around the world before landing in Barnum's hands, where it was promptly pimped out to a public particularly predisposed towards mermaid fever during the 1840s. Of course, this wasn't helped by the discovery of animals like the platypus, which led a certain amount of credence to the idea that this mermaid was a genuine article. That being said, audiences and experts seem to be split pretty firmly down the middle about whether this mermaid was real or fake. Upon finishing its various tours, the Feejee mermaid resided at Barnum's Museum in New York before ultimately landing at the Boston Museum, headed by Barnum associate and sometimes rival Moses Kimball. Both museums had burned down by the 1880s. It's unclear whether or not the piece was destroyed in one of these fires or salvaged and moved to another location. According to Live Science, a fake mermaid was donated to Harvard's Peabody Museum after the latter museums were destroyed, where it still exists today. Experts doubt this is the same mermaid that Barnum displayed, if only because it was too pristine to be as, well-traveled as Barnum's mermaid was. It also looked quite different, with a significant difference being the size of the mermaid's boobas. You see, the Peabody's mermaid was flat-chested, while Barnum's had some big honkers. Mermaid hoaxes existed long before Barnum was alive and continued well after his death, but their success within his exhibition cemented their place in the public consciousness as well as pop culture. I used air-dry clay for the tail and the teeth to save on materials, and while it did the job, it was an absolute nightmare to work with. This type of clay shrinks a bit as it dries, which also takes like 2 days per session, which is bad news if you're sculpting over an armature. The tail will still want to crack if I so much as look at it funny, but this should be sufficient for moving onward. As far as distinctive features go, lampreys don't have a lot going for them. Well, except that one part. I added some toothpick teeth around the head because I ended up breaking a lot of the teeth that I sculpted. I ended up resculpting the mouth with green stuff because my air dry clay cracked like the dickens there too. I kept a few of the missing teeth for some character, but it was starting to drive me nuts after a while. I'm keeping things simple on the body, adding dorsal and caudal fins so they have some form of added mobility outside of catching a ride on some poor creature. Whee! I'm using doll packaging for these. Outside of the Peabody Museum, Feejee mermaids have become a fixture in sideshows and exhibitions the world over, where some still reside today. I lived in the Seattle area for a few years during my childhood, and for over 100 years, Seattle has been home to Ye Olde Curiosity Shop, a fun little place packed with neat things like 2 mummies, shrunken heads, a 3-tusked walrus skull, etc. They also have a Feejee mermaid on display right at the front of the shop, displayed from the rafters. It's been in their collection since the 1920s, and even they're not sure where it came from. Although, the original owner, Joseph Standley, purportedly liked to tell stories about how it was shot within the state by a local fisherman. That's very Washington, to be honest. 10-year-old me was endlessly fascinated by this curio. It also scared me absolutely shitless. And for good reason, it's hideous. However, this particular specimen was one of my major sources of inspiration and reference on this project, and I'm sure y'all could tell if you took a gander for yourself. And also, if you're in the Seattle area and somehow haven't been to the Curiosity Shop, get your tookus there and see all the neat things. Maybe get some Ivars on your way out. As far as paint goes, I'm using a lot of grays and browns to mimic how real lampreys look, and to complement the hair later, as well as red and purple around the mouth for that spooky mouthfeel. I splotched the first layer of paint on the body to get everything set up, telling myself to trust the process all the while. Once the painting was done, I sealed the whole doll with a satin coat and glossed the inside of the mouth. For the hair, I just did the same thing as I did for my mini-me doll. I brushed out some brown yarn, but not straightening it. That way it keeps its coarse and wild look. In the spirit of Feejee mermaids, I'm adding hair on the body as well. As a finishing touch, I'm putting some aquarium gravel and a small plant inside the bell jar to create a quasi-slideshow display, also harkening back to how Barnum's was displayed. And with that done, our menacing mermaid is ready to make their debut. While more sculpture-heavy projects always seem to kick my butt, this is something I've wanted to make for a while now, and I'm glad I finally did. Not only is this another project off my bucket list, but it'll look fantastic, displayed where it'll scare all my house guests. What do you think of my mermaid? Let me know down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more of my nonsense. Thanks again for watching, my dudes, and I'll see you next time.